morning, so we're getting better. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. I know life is busy for everyone, so thanks for taking time out of your schedules to be with us. I feel like I've met so many of you, but just in case I am an unfamiliar face, my name, and I've just read, I think you had this in a different place earlier. I'm blocking out faces. I'm going to have to do a. Sorry, I'm being a bit of a diva. There we are. That's way better. I was looking at your face. My name is Jess Fairmont, part-time executive head. My role is very much to support all the schools in the trust. At the moment, a lot of my time is spent at SEAL. So there's been quite a few changes, but the biggest and most exciting change is obviously that we've appointed Mr. Woodward to be our head of school from September, and so we're very excited about that. And the fact that you're all here means that you've obviously read the letter and you're keen to know about the changes that are happening. Just to kind of manage expectations for this afternoon, the whole point is to kind of for this to be an initial conversation with you all, and to give you a little bit more information, hopefully reassure you that your questions are being heard and are being considered, but we won't be able to answer every question this afternoon. We've tried, and we're an hour in and we've only just scratched the surface. But the intention is that we'll have numerous parent forums, we'll have parent packs that come out. We'll be talking to you a little bit about the new survey that's coming out to you. So this is very much a process, and not just we're going to speak to you today and that's it. Everyone be on their merry way. And there is a lot to consider and there's a lot to think about. But for us, having everyone on the journey with us and everyone having a voice, including parents, staff and children, that's going to be really important for us to do this successfully.
And just want to thank those of you who emailed over Easter, filled in the Microsoft form that was sent out attached to the letter. That was really helpful and has helped us to frame our conversation today and our initial conversation. So the questions that have come from that and the queries that you've had, that's hopefully we'll answer some of those today, and we'll do as much as we can. But as I said, if there's anything that you feel has been glossed over or we haven't spoken about, please go back in the first instance and watch the recording from this morning, which will be sent out to you this afternoon, and then that may answer some of those questions. But the Microsoft form that was sent out over Easter, we're going to be resending that again. So if there are any further conversations that you want to have or any further questions that you've got, then please feel free to either fill that out or fill it out again. And then we can, as Ms. Fermor said, this is just the first conversation, the first forum. We will be inviting you back on occasions going forward. So then we are being very transparent. We're keeping up to date with everything that we're doing, everything that's happening, the whole process from start to finish. So you have a voice and you feel that you are being listened to, because that's really important to us as well.
So just a couple of things. We just want to reassure everyone that this really was the last resort. It was an easy decision. It's not been taken lightly at all. And secondly, our pan size is not going to be decreased. So I think there's been conversations where people have been worried that because we're temporarily moving to 1.5, that form entry, that our pan size will go from 60 down to 45, but that's not the case. Our pan size will remain at 60. So basically the number of children will allow into each of the year group.
Okay. So our plan is 60, which is for a 2-form entry, so it's 30 in each class. We're not going to 45, right? We stand at 60. So essentially we could have, I said, 20 year 4 children or 20 join us from now until the end of this year or going forward. We wouldn't stop when we get to 45. 60 is where we're looking to, and then we'll see what happens there in terms of the model and what happens from there. But obviously having 20 children in 1 year join us between now and the summer is unlikely. You never know. Talk to your friends. But we're not stopping. We're not capping at 45.
Yeah, that's just so we've heard the conversations. Also, we thought let's just make sure that's really clear. And the whole purpose of that is so that we have that opportunity for growth, and that is our vision. That's our aspiration, to get back to being a full school. But in the interim, we've got lots of plans in place and lots of things happening behind the scenes to make this successful. Ultimately, the heart of this are children who we care so deeply and passionately about. And whilst I appreciate I don't know every single child one-to-one, actually what matters to me is that every child feels happy, safe and like they belong at SEAL. And I'm sure you want exactly the same as well. So in terms of the questions that we've heard back from parents, what we've done is we've summarised some of their key themes. So if I just share those with you now, and I'll go over some of the questions that have already been asked. The good thing is that none of the questions that came through were a surprise to us, and they're already the things that we've been thinking of ourselves and putting plans in place for. But what our promise to you is that we'll make sure all the questions along this process get answered, even if it's not today. So the reason why we're sharing them is so that if there's a question in your mind, you can think, oh, actually, they will be addressing that. So the kind of key themes are class allocation and fairness, curriculum and quality of teaching, early years and key stage transitions, progress assessment outcomes, social, emotional and wellbeing impact, long-term structured stability and staffing and resources. So some of the questions, and please bear with me because I haven't found a more entertaining way of being able to deliver this.
I mean, going through, we can group these questions. So I know those of you listening may not be able to see all this, but you will be able to see these questions in more detail when they're sent out. But they kind of link to how children are being placed into different classes and how we're choosing that. And we will talk about that more in a little while.
We'll send this out to you.
Yeah, in terms of the curriculum as well, and how we are ensuring that our staff are skilled to deliver the curriculum, how the curriculum is going to work in a straight year class compared to a mixed year group class as well, what the class sizes look like within that structure as well. And then we move on. Yeah,
with the class sizes, that has been a big consideration along the way. So when we were thinking about the structure, what we didn't want is to end up with gigantic classes of like 34 children and things like that are ridiculous. That we felt that would have a really negative impact. So that's why we've structured things in the way that we have. To take that into consideration. So whilst I can't specify the class sizes yet, because it really does depend on how our numbers are looking for September, how many children, how many parents confirm their place with us, and obviously if there's any movement and things like that. But they are looking at around 27, 28 in a class, which is still slightly less than obviously being completely full. But we're not looking at going massively over 30.
Obviously in reception with 1 year 2, we've got by law, we're not allowed to go over 30 as it is, but we've made the decision to keep that through for our key stage 2 classes as well. The questions moved on in terms of looking at pedagogy and the actual how do we teach and how that changes from EYFS to Key Stage 1 being different curriculums as well. Questions around why year 1 is the only year group without a dedicated single year class, in terms of friendships and well-being, which we've mentioned before as a key area, learning objectives and make sure those requirements are met, and support emotionally as well in terms of confidence and well-being. And then finally, questions around adult support in terms of moving classes and how the model might look in the second year that we do this and going forward. And then also the enrichment sessions and whether children in year groups will be put together, whether they will be separated or joined together in that sense as well, and what steps we're taking to ensure. So those are the questions that we're aware of. As Ms. Fermor said, there was nothing there that surprised us. They are all questions that we envisaged that parents would want to know, and they are already things that we have started to put together. Ms. Fermor said we are going to be producing a parent pack. So we are going to be putting all of this information in more detail. A 45 minute to an hour talk in front of you all today is not going to do justice or give the level of detail required to talk about all of these things in detail, which I hope you can appreciate. But our facts that we're putting together hopefully will answer these questions in a lot more detail and help you feel more confident about the process that we are going through.
And you already had some questions from children. I think it was the year 5.
The year 5. So the biggest issue for year 5 going into year 6 is, will they, if they're in a mixed year class, will they be able to sit on the benches in collective worship, or will they have to sit on the floor with the year 5s? That was their biggest concern. So
The answer is yes.
but those are the things that we are considering as well. We're having these conversations with you, and we know that you will have inevitably had those conversations with children at home as well. We will be having conversations. We will be talking to children about what their needs are and what they want as well. So it's we want this to be a very transparent process where you are involved, you have a voice. Our children involved, they have a voice. Our staff are involved, they have a voice. Because we are a community, and I've spoken about that since day one. We are a community, and this process, it doesn't change that fact at all.
I think that leads us on to some of the ideas and suggestions that we've had so far. So parents have said that they want to be able to help their child to cope with the transition, so some extra support there would be useful. Looking at extra emotional support, buddy systems in place for the mixed age classes, getting reassurance from parents and children who have had mixed age classes. So one of the things that kind of came out, we were discussed in this morning's session, was that we would welcome parents to come and see practice at 4 Realms, because I think someone had said to Miss Cheddy, oh, it'd be good if we could see a lesson in action, and so we're thinking, oh, do we like fake one with the parent, or how can it work? But I think to see it in real life and seeing it at we can do a bit of a mock version, but it might not have the same impact as also being able to see it. But we need to think about the logistics behind that, and whether there's a way of us being able to record certain elements, because I think the key thing with mixed age classes is that it's not obvious when you walk into a classroom. You don't go, oh, you've got year 3s here, you've got year 4s here, and they're doing completely different things. It takes someone being able to explain, right, the question in here meets these objectives, and that's what the teacher's planned for. And if we unpick the teacher's plan, this is how they're meeting the needs of the children in the class. Look at the resources they've got out, look at the supports that they've got in place, look at how the teacher's gone to work with that group. But there's so much to it that it's not a simple
It's not like an imaginary line down the middle of the classroom, and year 5 are one side and year 6 are the other.
But there's quite a few kind of subtleties that actually being able to talk parents through those sorts of things will hopefully be quite helpful. So bear with us whilst we think about how we can make that work. So we also don't want to scare the teacher. Have you got an idea?
Yes, if you use something like ChatGPT or Gemini AI, you put in a whole lot of, this is what the teacher's going to be teaching. It's a year 3 and year 4 group split. Please create me a video. You could probably pass that around.
We'd want you to see our context.
It's just an idea.
I mean,
for
the
logistics.
thing is, and what we spoke about this morning is that we're very lucky within our trust. We have got a school like 4 Realms, which is mixed age classes, and so we have got teachers who have got experience. I was there last year. Miss Fermor there this year, last year, and before as well. And so we have got that experience. And one thing that I don't think we've kind of portrayed is actually the outcomes at 4 Realms. So last year I taught in a year mixed 5-6 class alongside my role, and our year 6s, 100% of our year 6s met the expected standards at the end of year 6. And those year 5s who are now in year 6, the outcomes are very similar, if not the same, that way. So the model does work, and it is a positive model, but it is something we'd want you to see in action, so then you can see how that works. And obviously they're very different settings, SEAL and 4 Realms, but in terms of teaching, in terms of pedagogy and how we teach, that is something that we want to
We do
invite
lots of
together.
sharing.
So,
Parents just asked if they've been mixed year for some time. Yeah, literally, yeah, since in fact we had a parent here this morning who went to 4 rounds as a child, and so it's always been that case, yeah. What parents have also suggested guides explaining mixed year teaching. This morning I started explaining more about Key Stage 1 and early years curriculum, and then actually it just didn't do it justice at all, and there's a lot to it. So we're working on how to simplify that just in a way that's that's easier to understand. And having more opportunities for children to meet their new teacher and their classmates. So transition will start a lot earlier, and those different opportunities like having PE sessions together, break times, team building opportunities, some curriculum time together. That's going to start start much earlier.
so I'm not sure how knowledgeable you might be, but in terms of teachers handing in notice, their deadline is the 31st of May. So even after this process, if someone decided they had another opportunity somewhere, they've got until the 31st of May to say to me or to Miss Fermor, actually, I've got another opportunity. So we couldn't communicate anything with you in terms of classes or who's where until at the very earliest, the 1st of June anyway. But once we've had that opportunity to sit down, look at where we stand after that and what our numbers are looking like, then as soon as we are able to, we will communicate that with you, with children. We won't be leaving it up until the last week before the summer. We won't just be having the one afternoon meet the teacher opportunity this year. Things are going to look very different. There are going to be lots more opportunities, afternoons, days, plenty of time, not just the one singular session. There'll be lots of time, so then children get used to their new class, their new teachers, and so on.
Another thing you spoke about voluntary redundancy for the teachers. Does that time frame follow the same time frame as the teachers have to give their notice in? So that's
No, we purposely, without going into too much detail, we've purposely brought that back. So then after this process, teachers have still got opportunities to seek
So will you
employment.
communicate which teachers are leaving for redundancy once that process is completed, or will we not know anything until the end of the?
That's a really good question. I don't think we haven't thought about at what point we'll announce the teachers are, because we also at the moment it's just a proposal with the redundancy side of things, because it depends natural movement, things like that happen. So if it's okay, I will take that one away and just think about that. Yeah, that time frame.
Yeah,
Thank
think
you.
about the sensitivity of it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for your question. Not one that anyone's asked yet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Right.
the other thing, sorry to interrupt you, the other thing that's been discussed is that planning for September, October and so forth in terms of getting early feedback on how the children are doing, and again being able to meet the teacher and just have an understanding of what's going on in the class. So whilst we're talking a lot about plans up until the summer, actually this plan is continuing into next year in terms of what can we do throughout this whole transition period to support communication and also that those updates on progress and things like that. And again, this morning there are some really helpful comments and things just about the school in general, where I think there was a parent that said that actually they didn't know their child had moved up 3 bands in reading and stuff like that, and that wasn't celebrated. And whilst that has nothing to do with the change we're about to make, actually that's something we need to take back and think, right, actually as parents are going through a structural change, we need to make sure that you're hearing all these wonderful things that are going on and how well your children are doing. Or on the flip side, actually, if they're not, there needs to be openness around that and looking at what support we need to put in place as well. So yeah.
So one of the big things that we know that you want to know the answer to is how are we deciding who's going to which class, which are going to be in the straight year classes and the mixed age classes. And this is where your voice comes in amongst many opportunities as well. And we want to know your thoughts on this. So we've devised a Microsoft form, which is going to go out to parents at some point this afternoon. And it's going to be split into 2 parts. The first part is an opportunity for you to kind of rank in order of preference. And we have to stress for your children. Okay, so have your parent head on and think about your just own specific children. If you've got more than one child, if you can fill this out for each child, that would be really helpful for us. And the first question asks you to rank in order of preference on how important each of these categories are in terms of how we organise which class your children are going to go into. So they are friendships, SEND support, academic attainment. And I just want to clarify this because someone mentioned it this morning. When we say academic attainment, what I don't mean is that we're going to have the brightest children in one group and then the not as bright children in the other group. But it's about finding a balance, make sure there's a balance there as well.
And that's because that's backed in research that is not as effective.
So streaming and setting, that's not what we're looking into. Miss Fillmore knows that I'm not a fan of it either. So it's the mixed ability and mixed attainment classes. There will be a mix across the board. Pastoral and emotional considerations, age and birth date is an important one, particularly for our younger children. If I've got a year one child who has a July birthday, putting him or her in a class, and you'd be a 1-2 class with children who are born in September, there's nearly a 2-year age gap there, and that's not appropriate. So those are things that we need to consider. And then continuity and stability as well. I know that some parents mentioned that there has been a bit of instability in terms of adult support with maternity leave and so forth. And so those are things that we want to consider as well.
I just ask a question on that.
Yeah.
On the age bit. So I have one child who's the 8th of September and one child who's 30th of August. So I have, so I fully understand like the whole age thing and stuff. Looking at my eldest, who is the oldest in the year, his best friend, who he would be distraught if he wasn't with, is a May baby.
So this is why we've got
so
different.
on birthday, they're not putting the young and the older ones together.
Well, this is that, and that's why it's just one criteria, one thing, and that's why it's really important that we get.
It's
the
not
range
just
of
one
you.
criteria. You just said it is one.
Sorry,
criteria.
it's not just one. Sorry, it's not just one. It's a fact that we've got all of them here and we put them all together.
I understand that. I just think
Yeah.
the way that was communicated, if you wouldn't want the younger ones being with the
Sorry,
older
as in,
ones, you
for-
will have scenarios where some of the young ones
Exactly.
will perform better.
but
with
for a
the
lot
older
of
ones.
for a lot of children, so it's about making sure that is most appropriate. But there are exceptions to that rule. And that's not, we're not as steadfast as that. What I don't want you thinking is that we're going down the register and saying, right, there's the cut off there, you go in that class, you go in that. That's not what we're doing at all.
No, I do agree because my youngest, for example, was then with people 2 years older. He emotionally just wouldn't cope, so it has to all be. And each child's different, right?
Yeah, he would
Precisely.
enjoy that.
And it's not a one size fits all. So the second part of this form,
So are you looking at it, so this form, do we put our child's name at the top?
yes, Yeah.
Okay, so you are looking at it
Yeah.
as on an individual basis?
Yes.
then?
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
so
It's gonna be
So-
a lot, but-
the second part of this is for you to go into more detail around the context for each of these categories as well. So you've ranked them. And then the second part here is, for example, the second question, your views and considerations of friendship. So your child, who are they really close friends with? They'll be distraught if they were not with X, Y, Z and so forth. They all form these really strong friendships. And then going down sensible academic attainment and all of our criteria. I haven't put on here that we require a response from all of them because some of them might not be as relevant to you as others. Ms. Fillmore said to me yesterday, she said, oh, if it was your children, what would you choose? And I said, well, friendships would be really important and academic attainment would be really important to me. But there are other things there that maybe are not so relevant and not so high on my priority. And that might be the case for you as well. So you do not have to fill in every box. I don't want you to feel like you've got to fill it in just for the sake of filling it in. Focus on the areas that are really important to you and your child there. And those are the things we can look at. I need to caveat this. We have got 320 odd children at the moment, and we will look at these. I can't promise that 100% of what everyone wants is what everyone will get. What I can promise you, though, is that with this form, we're listening to you. We're doing the best that we can to find a nearer best fit as we possibly can. And we will continue that communication with you. We can't always do that. And we're not going to be able to get 100% of everyone where we want, where you may want them to be. But what we will do is we'll listen, as I've said, and make sure that we are lining up as much as possible in terms of where those priorities are, where those preferences are, and the conditions where your children are going to thrive and be happy coming into school and thinking about their well-being. That is incredibly important to us.
Can I ask a question?
So, yes, you can. I'm just going to let people in. Sorry.
Are you aware of other schools that have done this, and is there a clear line that they've got to have, or is other schools
Yeah,
in
so-
exactly this position?
Yeah, so we do know of other schools. It's difficult to kind of people, other leaders, should we say, haven't necessarily been completely open about the whole process and what they've done, and we can find things out by looking on website and to look at communications and things like that. But speaking to other like friends and friends of friends, use the kind of silly example, my hairdresser, this happened in her child's school, and actually it was a kind of, this is what we're doing. Her daughter, who had really high levels of anxiety, was separated from all of her friends, and then at playtime they had separate zones as well where they played, and so she had no interaction at all with those children, and I was like, that's just not that's not okay at all. Yeah, so I guess in that respect, it's also hearing what people have done and thinking what's right for us, what reflects what we value, and like Miss Wood was saying, we might not get it perfect, but actually what support are we going to put in place for, so if a child is struggling in that respect, what are we putting in place? What do their break times and lunch times look like? What opportunities are there for crossovers or joint activities and things like that, should they need them, or additional emotional support? So
I'll come to you in 1 second. That's right. I just wanted to say as well that this is not unique, this situation, to Seal. The birth rate is lowering within the local area. There are more and more schools that have had to move towards
your
half. My son's school, we're in Bexley, but they've gone from a 4 elementary school down to 3, and there's a potential of going down to 2.5, and that's in the space of 2 or 3 years. It's becoming more and more common, which is not great. But what we want to do is become school of choice and moving forward, and that's where we're moving to. So I don't want you thinking like, oh, this is a Seal problem, or not even a problem, a Seal situation, I should say. It is a local area. It is more and more people are moving away. Work habits change, and working families change habits and so forth. So those are things that are beyond our control.
So I can't hear what everyone's saying. This is quite quiet, so I don't know if anybody asked, but when these kids are forming their new friendships in the mixed class, and then they move up to the next year, but the other ones are left behind,
Right.
how are we managing?
Yeah.
Like, you're moving friends together,
Mhm.
yeah,
then they create new friends that a year apart,
Yeah.
and then they move into.
Then they're back again.
Yeah, and then they've got to now every year make new friendships with the people above or whatever.
Yeah.
they'll have their base, if you like. So whilst there may be some changes, if that's what's needed, our aim is to have as much stability as possible. So if they have, if I can just talk about ones at the moment where they have like there's a year 1 and year 2 class together. So when the year 1s move up to year 2, they've got that group of however many of them as their kind of core base that they keep going up with.
Yeah.
And then they have the younger children that come up to them. Again, it'd be year 1 year transition, thinking about how that works. But what we tend to find is that when they go into that older year group, they get quite excited about almost being like, we're the old, we'll look after you.
Yeah.
And actually, I really like the idea of the buddy system, for instance, to help with those
It's good
friendships.
you have the buddy system until they move to next year, then that young one loses their buddy.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
But then they become the buddy to the young ones coming up.
Yeah,
And then, whilst if we use like year 1 and 2 as an example, so we start with year 1 and year 2, year 1 will move up and 2 into the next class, but then the following year they'll be back together again and so forth. So we will be
yeah,
doing
I
that.
see, kind of like, from being the older one.
Yeah.
then they're going to be the young one, then the old one, then the young one.
Yeah.
And that's going to be confusing from being the top dog to the low dog to the top dog to the low dog.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering how that.
I can only go, and Miss Byrne will be able to talk about this in more detail than I would. I can only talk about my experience at Four Elms,
Yeah.
and I know that that's worked really well. And it is positive. Children do thrive on being like those role models. Just think about our year sixes who love like being those role model and prefects around the school and looking after those younger children as well. We find that in the classroom. And the children who are in those mixed age classes, they will stay together. We won't be putting it all apart and saying, right, who's going to go into the straight year 5 class and the mixed year 5 class? If you're in the mixed class, we're keeping that stability, and that will follow you up all the way through, because
Yeah, just, you know, it's
Don't
just
wanna
a
mix
little
that
bit
in.
concerned of giving them the responsibility of the buddy,
yeah,
and then you take that away the next year, because they are now the little one who's going to have a big buddy.
yeah,
And then they become the big buddy again. Oh, I've got that responsibility, then I'll lose it again.
yeah.
And it's a bit, it can be a bit.
And that's where our responsibility as leaders across the school
Yeah.
is to support that transition, support children. And some children will make that transition a lot easier than others, and some may find that challenging and a little bit trickier. But whether it's a mixed age class or in the model that we've got at the moment, it's still, for us, it's still managing that transition from one year group to another, and
Yeah,
that's
just
still.
wondering, buddies in the same age group might be easier than a younger buddy, because you're going to
Lose them going forward. Yeah,
Maybe sideways buddies.
Yeah.
sometimes.
yeah, potentially.
Ranking, you know, perhaps, I don't know.
yeah.
No,
It seems like you've got it sorted. I just.
No, but this is why we're having these meetings, because it's
Yeah.
really important to get these fresh ideas and these fresh voices to enable us to make sure we're making the right decisions for everyone,
Yeah.
and not just with one voice and from our side. Getting those voices from outside as well and from yourselves is really important to
And
us.
and I think as well, it comes down to the consideration of the day as a whole, in terms of what do then break times and lunch times look like, if they can then go and see their friends in other year groups. And one of the other things that we've seen is that the sense of community and children having more friendships in other year groups. I mean, you'll already see that, so you kind of say hello and goodbye to random children. You think, oh, who's that then? Who's that? And they've been playing on the playground, but that will need considering in terms of how we use those informal times as well
And I think it'll help us to build stronger relationships with children from different year groups who maybe we might not have interacted with before, because they've not been the same age, those children. So we found actually that for a lot of our children, particularly some children who emotionally find certain social situations challenging, actually being with a younger person in their class who they've really bonded with has really helped to support them. I can think of a few individuals at Four Elms who that really supports them.
Yeah, or the other way that
Program.
needing someone a bit more grown up to you. There's some children who have that real high level of emotional maturity, and actually they get a bit annoyed with the children their age,
Yeah.
and get a bit.
In fact, we found with our little one Blake,
Mhm.
when some of his friends went into reception,
Mhm.
and then but he's the big kid, he's the September kid,
Yeah.
and he was like, oh, and then now when they're at break time, they sort of play reception kids play, and he's sort of on the outside
Mm.
just chasing them around.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm worried that that's going to be the next for the rest of his school.
Yeah, no, and that's not what we would want.
Where he's got them, then he hasn't got them, he's got them, and he hasn't got them, and it's going to be a bit like that.
But there was still where it's very different, where in terms of kind of Blake's setting and like there was reception, it's a different setting and scenario there. Whereas as we're moving into the main school, it'll be a case of like the playground's there, so there won't be that divide. There will be lots of those opportunities for them to be able to integrate
Yeah.
and maintain that social dynamic as well. Yeah.
Sorry, in light of transparency, have you made cuts elsewhere before cutting teachers?
Yeah, so what we're going to do in the parent pack is we'll do a bit, give some information about the funding side of things, and and obviously in a respectful way, give you the information that's needed, so that then everyone's got all the same information. But yeah,
This wasn't a snap decision, and the first thing we comes, oh, let's do that. This was a very last result, and not one that anyone would ever want to
Yes.
have to make.
So you both got your hands up, isn't it?
One quick, is there a deadline, please? When will the comms be sent out, when we know what classes our kids are going into?
So this is being sent out today, and the Microsoft form that's sent out in the letter is also going to be sent out again. So then you can add more comments to this if, as I've said, there are questions that you don't feel have been answered today. In terms of a deadline for this, we haven't got one at the moment, but we'll communicate that in due time when we would like that. In terms of communicating classes, we'll do that as soon as possible, but it won't be able to be before the beginning of June, because we don't know where it would stand from there. So we're as soon as possible, and we will be as soon as possible. We certainly won't be until like the beginning of July. We'd want it to be a lot earlier than that as well.
I can say it. I'd be interested if there's any like research or insights that you can share, like from like 1.5 form, or 2.5, in terms of if you're in that split class, always remaining in that split class and not mixing them up each year. Like,
So, yeah, so I worked at Radnor House in Sundridge, and what they did in their prep school, they would mix up classes every year. And
schools do that.
And it brings no end of anxiety because children know that the friendships and the relationships they build
Almost links back to your point.
are going to then change again. And so I understood the rationale for it because it builds stronger relationships and builds different relationships with different children within the year group. They were 2 form as well. But actually the stability of knowing who's in your class and how those children are moving forward, I thought was really important. And just because you're in a different class with children your same age as you doesn't mean that you won't have the opportunity to interact. So keeping that there, I mean, you can only imagine if we change classes every year, I can imagine we'll probably have a meeting similar to this at the end of each year, or be inundated with emails saying you've moved my child to this class, but they're now not with their friend and they're now here, and I don't want them to be with this person, or I don't think they're going to get the same option. I can imagine that happening.
I do understand that. I'm thinking back to like when you go from year out to year 1, you do mix them up, and having gone through it twice, like you guys have got it right. Like because you see all the kids in school and stuff like that. So I have faith that.
And so we get it right there, knowing those children, but then are we then mixing them for mixing's sake afterwards?
Or those relationships, you still have all your friends in the playground. If you split them and say, right, you've only got 10 people now that are your age, and the other class has got 28, and they then want to lose out on 28 friends because they've all bonded, and then they're just stuck, and then they've got 10 in the playground and they've got 28 type thing, and you're splitting them, whereas you do them each year, those relationships in the playground, those outside of school stuff is stronger.
And that's where we want to make sure there are plenty of opportunities, even if in the mixed class or the straight year group class, what we want is plenty of those opportunities for the year group as a whole to be working together. And so those team building exercises, like the residentials and the sleepovers, that would still happen as well with those year groups. The PE and all of those opportunities, there will still be plenty of chance, even though they may not be in the same class, those up to 45 children at that point would have plenty of opportunities to be able to work together.
So I'm thinking about the year 5 who are mixed with the year 6. So obviously year 6 is about SATs and then about having fun and going off on the residential. What do the year 5s with all of that? How does that work? Are they training for SATs as well, or?
So we're keen to make sure that we're protecting the year 6 experiences, and we know that's a really big thing for them. In terms of the curriculum side of things, it is a little bit, basically I can't answer it in one sentence. So what we'll do when we have, so one of our next, or one of the parent forums that we have, we'll go into depth of like what the curriculum will look like for the different phases. And so we'll be able to explain that element there. But certainly those year 6 experiences will be there. And in terms of SATs preparation, ultimately it's about from reception, starting them off with those skills, and if the children are on track and knowing what they need to do and what have you, that build up of skills will happen. And the year 5 and year 6 curriculum, think about the maths in particular, for instance, there's a lot of like going over similar things and yeah.
So it feeds on to our next point here really quickly, and we've got just a few minutes to go through. So the key things from these questions. So our curriculum is going to be a rolling curriculum, our foundation subjects. We make sure we've got coverage by the end of each phase as well. So we will be looking at that. Ms. Fermor and I have got several scheduled meetings planned between now and July to make sure that that's in place and working. Talk for Writing is our new writing initiative to help to support our writing outcomes. And with Right Rose Maths as well, that we've used for our maths curriculum, they both support mixed age classes. So if you Google Talk for Writing, if you Google White Rose Maths, you can have a look at those websites and you can see the planning and you can see how they cater for mixed age year groups as well. Adaptive teaching, what some of the questions have been about, or how are teachers going to be skilled enough to be able to teach 2 year groups at a time? Well, teachers are already doing that essentially at the moment, because we've got our higher retaining children and we've got some children who are not working at the expected standard for the year group they're in at the moment, and academically maybe 1 year, maybe even 2 years behind in some areas. So our teachers are already catering and adapting their teaching, adapting processes, adapting planning to support the needs of all children in that class as well. Just this is on a more formal level now. So when we talk about our teachers skilled enough, yes, because they're doing it every day at the moment. Scaffolding is essentially, I said to Ms. Fermor this morning, like I could talk for hours on pedagogy, but I have to save that for another time. Ultimately, we teach to a certain level of our children, and then the scaffolds are put in place to support those children. Like we have on a house, we have a scaffold to support. And so we make sure in the form of, say, word banks or key vocabulary might want to use, sentence stems to begin sentences, manipulatives in maths that children can use and help with their understanding of number as well. So everyone's achieving that same objective as so forth, differentiated for year group and what the year group objectives tell us. But we are adapting our practice there. And then like any good scaffold, when time is right, we gradually remove that to build that independence there as well. So it's about knowing and understanding that. Questioning and modelling have been key areas of our staff CPD programme throughout this year anyway. So questioning, thinking about how we're asking questions, who we're targeting our questioning to, and how we're eliciting those responses. And modelling and how we are moving from teachers independent or teachers guiding that practice and children watching teachers model what the expectation is, to moving to a joint approach. So we do something together, and then when we move from that guided practice together, that's when the time is right, it's that independent practice, so children are able to work independently to meet the objective as well. Our curriculum, we want to work through a spiral curriculum, so it's a case of building on what's already been taught. So I used the example of number bonds early on this year. We don't teach it in September and then say, right, everyone got those questions right, everyone knows the number bonds to 10 now in September. We don't need to touch that again, because we know come July and we ask them about number bonds, they would have forgotten. So it's a case of learning and then building upon and then building upon again, going forwards. Okay, so we're always revisiting what we've learned and then building the next layer on that to help with confidence. And that helps with retention of knowledge, and all of this being underpinned by theory. One of the things I do want to do is kind of do parent seminars and on this key research that really underpins what best bets in education look like and what we're putting in place to support the children and what the research and evidence says. So you have more of an understanding of how that's working in our school. But everything that we do is underpinned by the best research, the best evidence, what works best in education, what will work best for our children, whether that is a 2 form entry class or whether it's 1.5. And then so our next steps moving forward. So the parent survey, and staff are going to get a similar one to get their views on organisation, explaining the model of those mixed age classes. They will come in your parent packs in a way that hopefully will be more understandable, and we can go into more detail. With children, we're going to be doing a series of assemblies to explain that structure and how that's going to look, and then children to be asked their views and have their voice heard, the same as you will do. Our teachers we'll continue with our CPD program, but make it more focused in on that mixed age offer. And that will be led by myself and Miss McCann, who's our school improvement advisor as well. We're going to be looking at publishing the plans for our transition and pastoral support for term 6. As I said, that transition is going to start earlier for children to build up to the beginning of the new year. For example, looking at joint playtimes, PE sessions together. We'll share the pupil and staff allocation as soon as we're in a position to do so. And then we will continue that communication. Miss Fermore's mentioned it will go on to next year as well. But this is not the only time we're planning on getting together. We do plan on meeting several times and talking further about all the things that we've got planned going forward. I've lost my train of thought then. I was going to say something.
I mean, I think it goes to show, yeah, that been talking for about 45 minutes, and you can see we've just scratched the surface of, and I appreciate there's still lots of questions that everyone has. But if we were literally to go into everything, you'd be here till dinner time and beyond as well. So
I don't know if there's anything. I'm gonna have a look here if there's anything pertinent that we can ask here really quickly. What will we do if year numbers are on a higher level? So yeah, and we've said that this is hopefully temporary. We hope to increase. What is the strategic plan for increasing numbers going forward? So we've got our so trying to answer both of those at the same time. So we've got our community engagement plan, building our reputation. One parent said this morning, actually parents can play a role in this as well, like by that feedback that you see on social media. Word of mouth goes a long way. And we did say this morning, yeah, at SIL we are in a position where we don't have the banners that we can put right outside our school for the world to be able to see. We are tucked down Zambra Way and Ash Platt at the back, and we don't have that same visible presence as maybe other schools do, but that shouldn't stop us from being a real presence in the local community. So that word of mouth, the way that we want to continue to build our reputation and build knowledge of SIL being here is really important to us and part of that ongoing plan. And
we've got expertise in the school for our parents, and I've been sitting here like, I help with this, or we've had conversations, but in the first session as well, where people are like, actually, we can help with this, we'd like to try this as well. So suggestions, stuff like that are very
we've got Arms Market, we've got SILfest coming up as well. So all those things about getting our name out there is really important. And in terms of numbers, if we do, because our plan stand at 60, if we do get an influx of children for a particular year group that goes above it, then we need to think about what that structure is going to look like. At the moment, the structure, the 1.5 form, is a proposal. We need to think about what that's going to look like. If we get another 30 children in a year group who want to join us at one time, then we need to rethink what that's going to look like, whether that comes in the form of recruitment again. We are going to 10 classes from 14, so we will have the space to open up classes as and when we feel we need to. So we are not just capping and saying, oh, there's no space here if we can expand. The idea is this is a temporary arrangement. We can't put a time frame on what's going to happen going forward. It's an unknown, but what we are doing is striving towards getting back to that 2-form entry model as soon as we're able to.
Sorry, if a child has been placed into a mixed group and you find it's not working, are you going to be allowed to switch?
So a parent asked this morning, and we do it on a case-by-case basis. And the importance for us is that we're going through that process and understanding why that's not working, rather than just saying, right, that's fine, that's not working, let's move. It's about conversations, because once we open that, then does that mean, oh, but they're moving and now I've lost someone, so now I need to, and then it opens a can of worms and so forth. So we would be on a case-by-case basis, but we'd want to have conversations, discussions. Why is it not working? What can we do to support in the first instance before just making that decision? But that doesn't mean we wouldn't listen. It's really important that this whole process, as we said, we're communicating, but we'd want to make sure that we're not jumping the gun and just making changes and reacting too quickly to that. We're going to leave it there. Unfortunately, I know there are other questions in there as well, and I hope that we've answered as many as we can. What I would ask in the first instance, if you've got a question that maybe we haven't answered, please watch the recording from this morning in case that question was answered then. We're also going to be sharing the Microsoft form that was sent out on the letter. So if there's anything that you would still like more information about that you haven't got, we haven't had a chance to talk about, please put it all in that Microsoft form. Even if
And
you,
also, if it goes, if it's a different question to the ones that we
Yeah.
said we will already know.
yeah, some of the questions we haven't been able to answer today because we wouldn't do it justice today, and they would go in those parent packs and be able to talk about it in a lot more detail. So please have a look at what's on there beforehand. But we're always available. My door is always open, and so I'm always here for you to be able to talk to. And if you've got any concerns or questions that you've got, but we're just really grateful that you're here and that you've managed to have your voice. Hopefully, feel that you're having your voice heard, because moving forward, that's really important to us. As we've said, this is the first of a few forums that we're going to be having, so please don't feel this is it. It's not. We will be communicating when we'll be meeting again to talk about the next step, and if you've got any further questions going forward. So thank you very much for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining online.
Thank you, but the communication from how it has been to go through this process, I think there just needs to be because it's not an easy thing to do. And I also email actually say that letter that you sent out could have been an easy letter to write, but as a parent, I felt it was well received and well received. So I think that's really difficult. And if you go back 12 months ago, we wouldn't have had any of this. So as much as might be some difficult conversations, I think I definitely value them. So thank you for
And
being open and taking that time, because there has been a step change, and that's what this is all about, is moving forward for real well.
Thank you, and hopefully that shows that we listened, we heard that that's parents were not feeling listened to, or like that their communication was poor. We're not perfect, and I'm sure there's still a journey to go on with communication, but if the big stuff we can try and get right.
I'd like to thank all of you as well. Like, since when there was a lot of anxiety about going home over Easter as to what reaction there was going to be.
Well, and to be honest, even doing parent forums, like firstly, when it's all still fresh, you don't know. Everyone's going through so many different emotions and thoughts and things like that. And actually the fact that everyone's been incredibly respectful, which I know you would expect anyway, but yeah.
But I just thank you for your positivity and comments. Well, it does make it a little bit, it's not the nicest situation, but it does lift a little bit of that pressure, knowing
And
that
allows
you've
us
got
to
your
focus.
inside. Yes.
Focus on.
So, and all the positive comments that have come through emails, through filling out Microsoft form, like, it's really, really gratefully appreciated, and helps us to make the right, to continue to make the right decision. So thank you for trusting us. Hopefully you continue to trust us, that we do have yours, your families, your children's best interests at heart, and that will never ever change.
Thank you.
I feel like that.
Right, thank you guys.
In here, yourself.
I'm so hot.
Oh.
Right, thank you very much, everyone. Take care.